Hey, welcome back to a very new video. But if you're new here, my name is Katja and on this channel I talk mostly about K-pop, books, language studies, mangas, basically all the things that I love in life. And for this week's video, it's gonna be different than normal because normally I post a lot of vlog content, which I love because I love to watch my day-to-day back on those videos. But this time I want to film a main channel video, just casually sitting down and just talk to the camera. And these kind of videos are also quite interesting to me because you can see the development of your taste very well, especially if you watch those videos back to back when it comes down to my language goals, or well, what we're gonna talk about, all the K-pop groups that I love, stan, want to go to their concerts or just a casual listener of them. I haven't done this one in quite a long time and I'm not entirely sure. However, in my notebook I always keep track of the groups that I stan or not stan anymore, and it truly fascinates me that over the last 2 years especially, my taste changed a lot, but also not at all. Like, for example, the rock genre is a genre that I absolutely adore and still love to this day. But I have been more specific about my taste. And I mean, I love that for me because I am a person that's always very curious, and I love when I get into something to broaden my horizons at the beginning as much as possible, how much I'm comfortable to or not even, and just spread my wings and just go with it. And then a few years later I start to basically get more specific in what I actually like and the groups that I stan, basically. That's where it comes down to this video. And it's interesting to see my thought process, but it also really has to do with the creative side of me and how I've changed, because it's not only, of course, with K-pop that I see my taste change. It is also with the books that I read, the films I watch, the shows I watch. My taste is changing and it's always moving, and that's a good thing. And it's not about growing up. I don't believe in that concept at all. I mean, yeah, growing up, getting older. No, I believe in getting older. And that you just go and gain knowledge through life. I love that. So, okay, let's not get into much into the philosophical side of how my mind works. Let's get into music as of today. And I want to start first up with my 4 old groups. Most of them won't be coming as a surprise, I think. Well, maybe the first one. And the first one is Blackpink, because they haven't had a comeback in quite some time, so it isn't that crazy that I haven't talked about them in quite some time. So, this group, I started standing them before I even knew what that word meant. I did not even know anything about K-pop. It's so funny to think about it back then, or thinking about it now, about my thought process of back then, because I remember being so confused of what is a mini album? Isn't that like an EP? But then again, EP back then wasn't really a thing. So I started standing, well, how do I say this? Wait, let me get back to it. I started standing them in 2018, beginning 2019. And the term EP wasn't really used anymore by a lot of Western artists. It has a comeback, which is also funny that I use that word because I believe it's also not much a westernized word anymore. We use it for something completely different. The things that K-pop has done to my brain and my use of words is something that should be studied. Anyway, so I was so confused, I remember, about the mini albums that Blackpink has put out, and I did not understand what was going on at all. So in late 2019, I finally started to get into what does K-pop mean and how does this all work. And that was not only after I already liked some other groups. They are not in my old list, but I do want to share them. It was 80s and Dreamcatcher. I also liked those groups a lot as well, but I had no idea what was K-pop at all. And it's quite funny because you can see again the rock and the EDM in those groups as well. So it's quite clear of the things what I like. Then we go to, I think somewhere in the beginning of 2020 to BTS, my second group that I started to stan. And this one is so fascinating, this group, because yeah, I already knew what K-pop was, but I knew about this group for a very, very long time, even far before Blackpink. I believe in 2016, 2017, somewhere in those years. And I remember in the summer of 2018, I actually covered a shift for someone at work because she got last minute tickets to see BTS in Amsterdam. And I was like, oh, yeah. Well, actually, the exchange was quite funny. She came to me. She was like, yeah, I've got tickets for this boy group. And I was like, oh, BTS? And she was like, yeah, do you know about them? And I was like, nope. But I immediately knew what she was talking about. And I was like, yeah, you go have fun, girl. I will cover your shifts. And did I look into them? No, and I'm still surprised to this day that I did not got into them right at that moment. After at least looking them up, but no, I didn't. So it took me to 2020, and not only after someone told me, hey Katja, do you also listen to BTS? Because I saw that he listened to Blackpink, and I was like, no girl, don't know them, just know the name. And she was like, well, have you tried their older discography? Because to her, I said like, I don't think their music is my vibe. And she was like, well, go back to the discography. And I was like, I went and dived into their discography, but not far enough. And I was like, I still don't really like it. And she was like, go back a little bit further. So I did. And I loved it. Especially the first EP album, Dark and Wild, was my favorite, y'all. And I loved it. So after a couple of weeks just listening to their old music, I started to work and go further down their discography, but just newer. And I just loved it. And even the music that I was not a fan of at all in the beginning, I started loving it. Because I started to understand their journey and their artistry. And to me, that's also really important. To me, it's not only always just the music, it's also the art behind those words, moves, scenography. You know, there is so much more to music than just the sound, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's how I got into BTS. And moving forward to summer of 2021, No Easy of Stray Kids came out. And I liked that album so much that it was my album that I always put on while working. Did your girl knew who they were? No, I had absolutely zero idea of who these guys were. I just knew that they made banger music and that was it. I didn't even knew their faces, their names or whatnot. I just knew they made cute music. So, around a half year later, someone told me like, hey, have you listened to Stray Kids before? And I was like, yes, a lot actually, but I don't know who they are. And she was like, why don't you look them up? here is a link to video, and it was through their Blackpink cover. And I fell in love with their artistry. How they covered a song from a girl group but made it completely their own, with their own touches, their own voices, and I was amazed by how they did so well. So yeah, I started standing them and I started collecting them pretty soon after that. Then May rolls around, so we are in 2022, and there was Le Seraphim, the Femmies. It's so funny again. Why do I have all these random stories about my old groups? But it is what it is, you know. So back in the day, Hype announced that they were gonna have a new girl group. Let me tell you, I thought that this group just only existed in my mind because from one day to the other, it seemed they had disappeared. And I'm not talking about Le Seraphim, but I kind of thought it was. Because then Le Seraphim came, like a year later or something like that. And I thought they were the girl group that I saw teaser images of a year before or half year before. Now we have found out, or well I, and with me a lot of people on Reddit, that potentially Junjin of Le Seraphim was supposed to be in that group, but that group fell through at the last minute. So there were already teaser images. You didn't saw the girls' faces, but it was already announced there will be a new girl group. These are the teaser images, and there was even a video that I remember so vividly. But then it just went away. So I thought that I was a pre-debut Le Seraphim stan. But then for it never to have existed, but then again as well because Junjin was potentially in that group. It's a long story, y'all. But Le Seraphim happens, and I thought for a while that was supposed to be the group, but it wasn't. Nevertheless, I love their music. And they became one of my biggest old groups. So yeah, those are my 4 olds, and those are the groups that I also collect their music of. And I do have various ways of how I collect them, but I will do that in a separate video because I've been already talking for quite a long time. So let's get into the groups that I stan and follow a little bit more. So I watch their shows, or some of their shows, I read interviews, whatnot, and it's just a little bit more than a casual listener, but I don't follow them as much as an old. Let's start with the first one of the girl groups, which is kind of funny because that's one of the girl groups that I am thinking that they're becoming one of my olds, and it's Kiss of Life. Just a few days ago, they had their first anniversary, and ever since their first album dropped, I love their music. They, just like their name says, they are a fresh breath of air. And again, I love their artistry. I love how they work together as a group. They are 4 completely different personalities. They have 4 different backgrounds, but they just work. And I remember Natty explaining in an interview that the way how they picked each other and how they saw things moving as a group. And I thought that was so interesting. I also love their documentaries that they do, and that you also hear the staff talking. Oh, something is going on. My dog is going wild outside, so if you hear something, that's my doggy walking. But anyway, you also hear the creative director talking, and I truly love that about their company, how they also move behind the scenes with everything, how they explain their artistry. So that's one of the reasons why I stan that group. because they're so good in their artistry, their story that they are telling, and they are also amazing in making music. So for example, Belle, she worked as a composer before she became an idol, and it was never in her plans to become an idol, but she just became one. And she wrote actually Unforgiven, or she was one of the writers for Unforgiven, from Le Seraphim this side. And that's so fun to me that she worked already in this K-pop industry, but never thought of becoming an idol. So I love that. And I love their story behind each member of the group. It's very inspiring. And again, I love their music. Their B-sides are one of the best I've ever heard. Just the way how Kiss of Life carries those B-side tracks is just amazing, and I admire it very much. My dog is back asleep, but now it's pouring down outside, so we'll have to make do. Second group that I stan is Kepler. However, we don't know what's gonna happen next. We know that they will become a 7-member group after being a 9-member group for 2.5 years. So I really hope that Wake One, the entertainment company behind them, will announce their future plans very soon, especially since their promos of the album are now completed, as far as I know. Let's just hope for the best, okay? Let's move on to the boy groups. In my notebook it says TXT, but I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really been keeping up with their journey as much. They have been touring, so that isn't too crazy that I haven't been around a lot to their music. But yeah, maybe they will become a casual listener group later this year for me. We'll have to see how that goes. But nevertheless, I really like their music, and I also have their manhwas. The same goes for Enhypen, the next group that I want to talk about. However, with him Enhypen, there is something a little bit strange going on because, well, strange. There's one member in particular that I follow a lot, and that's Jay, because I love his artistry again. So that's why I was laughing, because artistry to me, when I see a certain artist going about his artistry in a certain way, that really triggers me to watch them a bit more up closely. And Jay is definitely on another level. Not to say that I don't like Enhypen at all, that I'm a solo stan or anything. That's not it. I also really like Enhypen, the group itself as well. Even in 2023, they were pretty high in my song list. So them as a group, I like them. But I follow Jay, his journey, a bit more up close. His solo work is rock. So I love that especially. And I love how he works with different Japanese artists and puts his own voice in there. And also their recent collab with Clay was so incredibly good. I listened to it almost every day, multiple times. Highly recommend that. So those are the girl groups, boy groups. So let's go and move on to the soloist. And there's only one soloist that I still listen to this day, and that's IU. Yeah, she is a veteran and she knows that, and she is still so incredibly good. It's quite funny because I used to have way more soloists in this list, but for some reason none of them really stick with me. That just happens. However, the K-rock list is still the same. These are the rock groups that their music I still adore, and I love their artistry again. And that comes down to Rolling Quartz and The Rose. Let's move on to my list of groups that I casually listen to. First up is Dreamcatcher, and that comes as no surprise since I have a Rolling Quartz in my K-rock list, because Dreamcatcher comes from the same company, and yeah, I am a sucker for rock. And like I said at the beginning, they were actually one of the first groups after Blackpink that I got into. However, they are always as a casual listener on my list. Just, I never know their names of the group. I do really adore their music. Today, an album dropped, and Virtuous, I believe it's called. It's so freaking good. So why don't I know any member's name? I don't know. Do I love their music? Yes. The thing is, you can only stand that many groups and still know what is going on. And unfortunately, Dreamcatcher is on that list of that I don't know much about, but I really appreciate their music. Next up is ATEEZ. I already named them earlier. I'm not a big fan of their latest release. I think it started already in 2022 that I didn't follow their discography anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's, well, I kind of know. It's just the title tracks. A lot of those I was not a fan of. It's just simply not my taste anymore. And it makes me sad because I love their older music, but for some reason I just simply don't click with their new music, and that's totally fine. The next few groups I know less and less about, in the sense of I never followed them even up closely. From some of these groups I know the names, but that's pretty much it. And that comes down to Twice, aespa, ITZY and 17. So with aespa, because it's a small group, and ITZY as well, I know everyone's name. But with Twice and 17, I already don't. I know a few, and that's pretty much it. And I really appreciate their music and artistry and everything else. But that's really it. This is the list of all the groups that I like, old, stan, want to go to concerts to. No, but for real, I really would like to go to a Dreamcatcher concert one day. aespa, I've heard so many great things about them live. ITZY, oh, I'm so sad that I couldn't go to their concert in Amsterdam. I couldn't go. I don't work, so I mean, I have my priorities straight, so that makes sense. Oh, I totally forgot about one of the groups, and that's because that group actually shifted. So it's Baby Monster. I really like this group. I followed them a little bit more, just because I'm curious how YG is managing this new girl group. But I would put them on the casual listener group for now. I did, however, follow their show, how they got together as a group. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You know what? Looking at this long list, I would go to any of these concerts. I'm so excited, especially with my old groups. But I think I would have a fun and amazing time at all these. Somewhere later this summer, I also hope to upload a video about how I collect certain groups. But yeah, this was a video about all the groups that I follow, stan, and well, to any of them I would like to go to their concert. I really hope to make that happen one day, because I've never been to a K-pop concert. So we need to make that happen. But that's something for future me. As of right now, I want to wish you an amazing day, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!